And we're live. Welcome to the stream. I'm Father Roderick. Let me start the Instagram stream as well. We are now broadcasting on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and now also on Instagram. We're on Instagram. Hey everyone, welcome to the live feed. I'm Father Roderick, and it is Friday, 5:14 p.m. here in the Netherlands. It's a wonderful day. Really, first time in a long time that we had some decent springtime temperatures outside. So this morning I recorded an episode of my other podcast, The Walk Outside in the Woods. Very, very lovely weather. And at the end of this day, before we start the weekend, it is time to record my other weekly podcast called The Break. We're going to talk about movies, technology, about faith, about so much else. So glad to see you here on the stream. If you want to hop out of Instagram because it's a bit of an inconvenient place to watch a longer live stream, then you are more than welcome on my YouTube page. Go to youtube.com/Father Roderick, and then you get the widescreen picture. It goes beyond the boundaries of this vertical video format that unfortunately is the only format in which I can stream on Instagram. So again, youtube.com/Father Roderick. Good to see you here in the chat. We are going to get going right away because, as I said, it's already 5:15, and usually to record a show, it takes about an hour, and then I have to upload it. So hopefully I'll be done with everything before I have to go to the kitchen and make dinner. So yeah, all right, let's get going.
Do you need a break?
You read my mind.
Come with me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Break. I'm your host, Father Roderick. I'm a priest and I'm a geek, and I love to talk about movies, TV shows, technology, faith, and so much more. And today I have some stories to tell about a fantasy festival that I visited the past weekend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you thanks to my wonderful community of supporters, people that give me a small monthly donation, and with that entire community together, they make it possible that I continue this work. I have no other types of income than this. So if you want to join this community, you want to stay informed about the very exciting things that are about to launch, especially a brand new community on my website, fatherroderick.com, which will not only have a community that is even better than what we currently have on Discord, it will also have a monthly live coaching or like an encounter webinar type of ability every month. And there will be a new podcast feed. There will be a new show that is coming. If you want to stay informed, then by all means, subscribe to my newsletter. It's called The Diary of a Media Priest. That would be me. And if you subscribe, it's completely free. I give you a copy of my newest book about the time between Easter and Pentecost. It has 50 pages with 50 prayers and 50 wonderful, like geeky illustrations. You can get that for free, and then you will get notified whenever I open the doors to the, let's say, the beta stage or the early access stage of this new community. So again, just go to, again, I haven't mentioned where you can go to sign up. If you go to fatherroderick.com/free, so fatherroderick.com/free, and you sign up with your name and email address, I will send you my latest book and as well some updates about what I have been working on for the past 2 months now. It's going to be amazing. This is really going to be the next step in the way that I can serve you as a listener, as a visitor, as someone who follows me on TikTok, on YouTube, and on so many other platforms. All right, let's go over to the world of movies and TV shows.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
I don't know if you're watching The Bad Batch, which is the newest animated show on Disney Plus. It tells a story about a couple of clone soldiers that were not as well cloned as the majority of the clone army. But that makes them special. That makes them unique. And they team up, and there is a girl, Omega, who is also a clone and is so, in a technical way, kind of the sister of these brother clones. And there is something special about that girl. And the Empire is hunting her and trying to capture her for reasons that actually most Star Wars fans now already know and have guessed. But it has to do with that one phrase in The Rise of Skywalker that got a lot of Star Wars fans upset. Like, somehow Emperor Palpatine returned. They're now filling in the backstory of that kind of that weird moment in Star Wars where all of a sudden Palpatine, who everybody thought had died by the hands of Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, was somehow back in the galaxy and more dangerous than ever. So how did that come about? Well, The Bad Batch kind of ties into the backstory of that. The last episode will be aired next week, this upcoming Wednesday. And one of the things that I'm considering doing is to create a webinar, like an online live session where I will review the entire story of The Bad Batch, and I will highlight some of the important points that resonate with me, and maybe even some lessons learned from that particular part of the story. And there will also be some Q&A time. That particular webinar will be one of the new features that I'm going to launch together with my new community. So again, if you want to stay informed about stuff like that, make sure that you are subscribed to my newsletter over at fatherroderick.com/free. I'm also watching some Star Trek, still watching Deep Space Nine, greatly enjoying it, even though it looks so old-fashioned compared especially to the amazing special effects that you have for Star Trek Discovery, of which I'm watching currently the 4th season. I'm trying to catch up with the 5th season that is currently being published every week, so I'm watching a few of those episodes every week. But it's still, in terms of storytelling, so superior to Discovery. I can't believe that a show that is so amazing when it comes to production value, special effects, is so badly written. I will not go on my soapbox again. You know my take on Star Trek Discovery. It's just not the best Star Trek. But thankfully, we also have Strange New Worlds. And, you know, Strange New Worlds is actually on my mind almost every single week. And this is because of one episode in season 2. And it is the famous, or maybe for some, infamous musical episode. So there's this one story where the Enterprise with Captain Pike gets trapped in a certain, like a strange parallel world where everybody communicates through song. They do have like an in-universe explanation why this entire episode is a musical. But the songs are so catchy, and I have them constantly in my head. Sometimes I struggle to turn off the tunes because it's so cool. And, you know, one of my favorite songs is with Spock, who is actually dumped by his love interest. Yes, Spock does have a love interest in this particular series. And then he sings about, now I'm the X. And of course, because he's half Vulcan, half human, he struggles a lot with all the emotions that come with the territory. It's a great, funny song. And oh my gosh, I hope they're going to do more of this stuff. And I secretly hope that Star Wars will also do at one point a musical episode, or a Star Wars musical. Why not? It's so much fun. There's been a Buffy episode, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that was also produced as a musical. And I've never watched Buffy more than just a few episodes of the first season, so I'm not exactly familiar with how that particular musical episode ties in with the rest of the story. But what I do know is that particular soundtrack is also amazing, and I love listening to it on Apple Music. So so this is why Star Trek is almost every week on my mind. What else have I been watching? Let me take a look. Fallout, of course. I continue to watch Fallout. The entire first season is online. It gets grittier. It gets even more violent along the way, which at some points completely grossed me out. But the storytelling is insanely good. This is really, now I totally understand why people said this is the new Game of Thrones. And that is so rare for a television series that is based on a video game. But they do a terrific job. Storytelling, character development. There are twists and turns. The special effects are amazing. The world building, it's at a level that I hope that Star Wars TV will also get to at one point. Star Wars is a different beast altogether, but somehow every television series that was, that Disney made with Star Wars characters and Star Wars backstory still kind of felt like it's made for TV. With Fallout, I am in this world. There's not a single moment that I'm thinking, oh, I'm watching a TV show. The world is so believable, even though a lot of it is just CGI and it's lots of special effects. But I'm totally there. Whereas with Star Wars, I'm always aware that I'm watching a TV production. With Obi-Wan Kenobi, that was the one that I had the most trouble with. I love the story. I love the young Princess Leia and the way she was portrayed. I love the writing, the dialogue. That was all wonderful. But the special effects and the whole, the virtual, not very good. Andor is the only Star Wars series where I believe that I'm in that world. But even, I would say, even Andor can learn some stuff from Fallout. The world of Fallout is so much more diverse and surprising than Andor was. So, of course, the second season is currently in post-production of Andor. It's looking very good. I think the producer or the writer, someone who has the lead of Andor season 2 has said, "This is my best work ever." Now that is setting the bar really high in terms of expectation management. So if they dare to say that, like, this is the best thing that I've ever done, then I have high hopes for Andor. And I have also high hopes for Disney, that they will continue to hire good people. One bit of news that made me super happy is that they actually enlisted one of the writers of Andor for the Star Wars prequel. Of course, we have the prequels that George Lucas directed and wrote, but we're going back in time many more centuries to the beginnings of the Jedi Order and the discovery of the Force. And it's a bit of a tricky story to tell, because you cannot use a lot of the visual language that makes Star Wars, because this is before the Jedi. So how are you going to do that? How do you convince the fans that this is something that they can relate to as Star Wars fans? I am very surprised. And at first, that was the only movie that made me both curious but also worried. Like, this can be a major success. It can expand the boundaries of Star Wars, but it can also be a huge failure and a movie that nobody wants to talk about afterwards. But to hear that they hired one of the main writers of Andor for that movie, yep, that's looking good. I also read a new interview with Daisy Ridley, who of course played Rey in the sequel movies. And in the interview, she was asked about her impressions of the script. She said that there is no script. There are just a couple of story beats. They're still working on the script. But next month, she will be the first actor who gets to read the entire script in its current state, because obviously that will still continue to be developed. This is not the first Star Wars movie that we will see in theaters. That first one is going to be about The Mandalorian and Grogu, which of course is maybe the easiest one to produce, because everything is already in place. They have developed the visual language, they have the actors, the costumes, the puppeteers, and Jon Favreau, of course, is probably going to be involved in that heavily. So together with Dave Filoni, I think they will make it work. And even if it is just a bigger story, but still similar to The Mandalorian on TV. I love The Mandalorian on TV, so I wouldn't mind going to the movie theater to watch a movie continuation of that story. But then I think the movie after that is going to be the movie about Rey. And Daisy Ridley said that she actually took some time to think it over. She was invited by Kathleen Kennedy out of the blue to have lunch with her, and then she was talking with a good friend of her, telling him like, "Oh man, wouldn't it?" Or the friend actually said, "Wouldn't it be amazing if they would wanted to do like a Rey TV show?" And then Daisy Ridley was like, "Nah, they're not going to do. Just want to have lunch and reconnect." And then after she had lunch with Kathleen Kennedy, and she was pitched the idea of returning as Rey Skywalker in this new movie, she called up her friend immediately. Guess what? So she ultimately said yes, and also really embraces this adventure. She is aware of the fact that the sequel movies were controversial or divisive, that not everybody loved them, but she did. She really enjoyed the experience. I also noticed this from just the behind the scenes stuff that we've seen, the photos that were posted on Instagram. You know, there was such a good rapport between all the characters, all the actors behind the scenes. And you know what? I still have the idea, even though the movies had their flaws, I think over time people will start to appreciate them more and more and more. We're getting used to how the story is told, so a lot of that initial emotion, like it's not what we expected it to be, will fade away. And then we'll probably start to appreciate it for what it is. And just in the same way as we have ultimately embraced the prequels for what they are. They are, really not very good movies. They are movies with huge flaws. I think in certain aspects of the sequels are a lot better in terms of overall quality than the prequels. But now everybody loves the prequels. Everybody loves the character of Anakin Skywalker in the way that Hayden Christensen portrayed him. And we can't really imagine someone else playing Obi-Wan Kenobi than Ewan McGregor. Sir Alec Guinness seems like a faded, distant memory. So yeah, maybe that will happen too. For Daisy Ridley, she says, "Now I'm now embracing this role in a very different way. I feel like I'm an adult now. I was not. I was still in a certain way too young almost for the experience when she filmed the sequels. So now that she has had much more work as an actress under her belt, she is much more ready to embrace this new phase in her life as an actress, but also in the life of Rey Skywalker, because of course this takes place, what is it, like a decade in the future or after the sequel movies, maybe even longer. And Daisy Ridley is trying to rebuild a Jedi Academy. So, and my guess is that they will probably also use that her lineage, the fact that we discovered in the last sequel movie that she was actually a descendant of Palpatine himself, and part of a dyad with Kylo Ren. I wouldn't be surprised if that also will play a role in this story. We got to get a glimpse of an evil Rey at one point, but it was just a hallucination or some dark force trickery, just like Luke Skywalker has this vision of being Darth Vader in the the tree, the magical tree on Dagobah. But I've always felt that's a direction that would make it so interesting if Rey Skywalker would actually start to lean into the dark side for whatever reason. I don't know. It would create tension around her character, and it's just it's a guess. It's a hunch. That would make it very different. It would make it much more than just a sequel, like it's just an add-on to the Skywalker saga. This needs to be something new, and maybe it will kick off a new trilogy, more movies. I don't think that would be a surprise if they would continue that story somehow for a new generation. We'll see. Hey, there are some trailers that I would like to watch with you. I always love to check out what we are going to look forward to. So I've got the IMDb page up, and if I'm correct, I can actually display these trailers for those of you that are watching this on YouTube or elsewhere. I can display them in my window, so you can see my reaction to it. I wanted to play the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, but I decided to watch it beforehand, and I decided that, nope, this is not a trailer that I can play on my show, because I have a family-friendly show, and there are way too many words in this trailer that start with the letter F. So let's not do that. Instead, I'm going to check out a trailer for a science fiction movie called Atlas, and it features Jennifer Lopez. Very surprising. I have no idea what this movie is about. I haven't seen the trailer yet, but let's take a look and see what it is.
Good morning, Atlas. Time to wake up.
I'm awake.
Agent Atlas Shepard has spent years of her life hunting the artificial intelligence known as Harlan. Originally engineered to advance humanity, he instead nearly ended it.
San Francisco.
If you really want to try to capture Harlan, you need me on that mission.
Mayday! We are under attack!
What do I do?
Stop it!
Oh my god.
Okay, this is out of control.
This planet is unstable and inhospitable.
Atlas, my name is Smith.
Is that really necessary? You're a computer program.
I'm driving through LA and out in Roscoe.
No, I'm not.
No? What are you then?
I am a computer program named Smith.
No one likes a smartass Smith.
We don't have much time. Harlan's planning an attack.
Atlas, my primary protocol is to keep you alive.
Same! I don't need your help. I don't trust any AI. Smith!
Okay, this is out of control.
Atlas, this won't work if you don't trust me.
Okay. Let's do this.
You everything I know about it. Know about it, know about it, know about it, know
This is what it feels like to be you.
This is what it feels like to be us.
It's beautiful.
everything I know about it. Know about it, know about it, know about it.
Don't worry. We are simply the better versions of you.
If we don't stop Harlan, all life on Earth is doomed.
You everything I know about it.
Shit.
You're in my head and the only thing you learn how to do is curse?
I'm an adaptive learner.
Okay. Let's go, bitch.
Okay, this is out of control. Okay, this is out of control.
Atlas. Okay, so May 24, only on Netflix. This is a Netflix movie. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. The one thing that immediately strikes me, and I know I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but the acting of Jennifer Lopez is so bad. Everything she says sounds rehearsed, sounds acted, and not real. And of course, for those of you that are just listening to the audio podcast, you just hear the sound of the trailer. But in combination with the few glimpses that we get of her acting, I don't think this is working. It's no, not at all. This looks really subpar. The movie itself visually looks amazing, but also very generic. It's just crazy good. But I get the impression that they're trying to make a blend between HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey and an Alien with Ripley's character, because at one point Jennifer Lopez's character is also in one of those exosuits and running around and shooting at whatever robots. But it has none of the gravitas of Ripley's character and the way it was done in Alien. So it looks a bit like sci-fi fluff, like a popcorn movie, and I'm a bit disappointed by that. I didn't expect it to be this generic, but I will watch it anyway. because it's on Netflix, so it doesn't cost me much. Okay, this one I really fear to watch because I don't like this franchise at all. It makes me nauseous when I try to watch a movie, even if I'm not watching it on a big screen. I watched 2 or 3 of these in theaters, and they were so long and just all this visual spectacle. And then I watched the others on TV, and they were so boring. But it's still a very profitable franchise. I'm talking about the Transformers franchise, and apparently we're getting another Transformers movie. Another one. So let's take a look at the trailer. In terms of voice actors. But, okay, so I don't know if this is a theatrical release, but it's clearly geared towards a very young audience. It looks like an animated movie. And it's so, again, it's so generic. It has all the classic story beats of a trailer for a kid's movie. I don't know. It's just not very good. But I guess it's a way to get new fans interested in Transformers, which of course are more for an older generation that grew up with the toys, and younger kids nowadays have no clue what Transformers are, probably. So this may be a way to introduce the franchise to a younger audience. I don't know. I think it's a little bit superfluous. I don't see why this would be necessary. But, oh well. Alien Romulus, we already talked about that. Inside Out 2, that is a movie that I would like to see. I really love the first Inside Out movie. And then here is one that I want to play. This is going to be the last trailer I'm playing. This is a sequel to actually one of my guilty pleasures. It is a disaster movie called Twister, which came out decades ago. And I love that movie. It's totally wrong in so many ways. And it's so offensive even to people that live in those, the Twister corridor parts of the United States. It's full of cliches, but man, is it an entertaining movie. And that came out like 30 years ago. They finally did a sequel to it, and it is unsurprisingly called Twisters. And I already know that I need that movie in my life, because I may have seen the first Twister movie maybe more than 10 times now. So let's take a look at the trailer. I love bad weather movies.
Dodge whatever's in there. It's big and it's moving fast. Drive. Go.
Guys, you gotta get out of here. Do you hear me?
It feels very much like the first Twister movie. More spectacular. This summer.
It's Tyler Owens. Calls himself a tornado wrangler. If you feel it, chase it! I said if you feel it, chase it!
So it's again going to be about storm chasers.
Oh, she's perfect!
She's gorgeous.
You thought you could destroy a tornado.
We never had a chance.
Interesting, they're using the same technology as in the first movie to measure how a tornado is evolving.
Face your fears.
It looks very much like the first movie.
We got twins! Twins!
Okay, I like this.
Is that it?
Nope.
Okay, July in theaters. This feels so much like the first movie, but in a good way, because I really enjoyed that first movie. This is almost the same story beats as the first movie. It feels more like a remake almost than a sequel. They're not trying to do anything extraordinarily new here. It's just the first movie worked, and it is kind of a classic disaster movie. Let's make another one just like it. It just has even more realistic looking tornadoes. This is, by the way, not just a movie is a guilty pleasure, but I always like it when clips show up on my TikTok timeline, for instance, of these movie chasers or tornado chasers and or these natural disasters. Of course, obviously for the people that live there, it's horrible, but it's incredibly impressive to watch that footage. And sometimes people have those dash cams in their cars, so there's a lot more real footage of what happens if you get close to a tornado like that, or even get gobbled up by one. It is just, I sometimes complain about the weather here in the Netherlands, but when I see stuff like this, I'm like, yeah, I think I like it here in the Netherlands. We do have some rain, but it's nothing like this. Anyway, Margot in the chat says, what do you call a fear of tornadoes? Common sense. You call it common sense. I think that's totally true. I've never understood why people would risk their lives just to film a tornado. It's just like the ultimate adrenaline rush, clearly, but it could get you killed. So is it worth it? I'd rather just go to a theme park and step into a roller coaster. I may get the same amount of adrenaline, but it's much less risky. All right. Well, with that, it's time to wrap up this episode of The Break. There will be a longer premium version for those of you that are supporting me through Patreon. Right now, the Patreon subscriptions are closed, so you cannot join one of the tiers. And this is because we're transferring everyone to the new, even better community that I've been building for the past 2 months. Very soon, a number of you will get an invitation to join the early access phase of those new communities. What I really want to guarantee is that you keep getting these shows. That for you as a listener, as someone who follows me, there is no risk. There's not going to be any interruption. So we want to first kind of try out this community. We will have a new podcast feed with premium content, so we need to test that out. So I'm not going to change anything about what's currently going on with Patreon and the way we're distributing these podcasts, so that for anyone who is not in that first early access group, you can just rest assured that you will get your weekly update. And then gradually, if everything works and it's safe to go there and there are no tornadoes anywhere near, then we'll bring everyone in. So again, stay subscribed to my newsletter, or subscribe if you haven't done so already at FatherRoderick.com/free. Talk to you soon. God bless. All right, that was part 1 of the show. Let's move on to part 2.
Why are you wearing glasses?
Reading.
Reading? Mm-hmm. I didn't know you could read.
Hey, I was thinking the other day about how can I get back to that amazing time that I had last year and the year before that, where I would read 3, 4, sometimes 5 books per week. How is it that I've completely fallen out of that habit? I miss it. I miss reading. I miss being in other worlds. I miss reading nonfiction books as well and educating myself. I do still continue to educate myself, but it's a lot through podcasts and through coaching that I receive. But I feel that now that I'm not reading as much as I did in previous years, there's a gap in my life. And I can fill it up with a lot of activities. I do a lot of stuff. But that reading was such an anchor moment of each day. And so I was listening to a podcast of my good friend Cliff Ravenscraft the other day, and he was talking about getting back into his morning routine. So I'm not sure if you follow him on the Cliff Ravenscraft show. So he recorded an episode in his car, and it's recorded at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And he brought his microphone with him. Actually, I think the public episode is not yet recorded with his Rodecaster, but he's working on improving the sound so he can do these very professional studio recordings inside his car, like literally on the front seat of his car. And he was talking about getting back into this morning routine of waking up super early and then driving to a gym and then apparently that particular gym is located in a beautiful place where you have a view of the surroundings. You can see hills in the distance. It is and you get to see the sunrise. So he sits there working for about an hour, recording a podcast, meditating, reading, listening to Tony Robbins and stuff like that. And then he jumps into the gym, works out, and then drives home again. And he was sharing how much getting back to that routine that was a staple in his life before the beginning of COVID, before the pandemic, how much that was like coming home to a certain extent. It was like, oh, now I know what I missed. And it gives so much energy to be in that place. And I was listening to that and I'm thinking, that's exactly my situation as well. I feel like I've been in this very good place where I was reading so much and I enjoyed the process, and even having this super ambitious reading target of reading 150 books in 1 year. It was crazy. Maybe not something for everyone, but for me, it was such an amazing incentive to keep reading, and I enjoyed it so much. There were just a few books of those 150 books that I actually did not enjoy, but I read them anyway. But the majority of those books have so enriched my life. And I know that those reading moments were linked to routines. And this is what has changed. My routines have changed. My life is different. And it has to do with some work changes. So I'm now back working for TV. And even though it's a very small job, it still takes me enough out of my regular routine to get, to not having the energy and the ability to snap back into this rhythm of reading a lot. It probably also has to do with the whole migration that you just have no idea how much work it was to migrate from the current situation with Patreon and the podcast hosting and Discord to this whole new place. And then, of course, I'm also working on setting up a coaching business, and I'm trying to do that in a very professional way. So I'm reading a lot of marketing material on how to do this, the technical aspects of setting up a website like that. And it's not just a website, it's like an entire system of for marketing, for reaching out to people, for building audiences. I had to learn so much that took all my energy. And because of all these new things that I've never done before, including also coaching other people and being coached myself, those are also very intense moments every week. And oftentimes I just feel like I don't have the time or the energy or the mental rest to read a book. But now I'm starting to feel like maybe it is time to switch back into that old routine that I had. And it was not just reading. It was combined with working out. I read most books while I was walking outside. So last year I've been running a lot. I've also been walking for 2 years, long distance walking. And of course, if you do that, I can listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I would walk actually every day because I had set a goal. That's another part of my routine now that I think of it, that I abandoned. I made the commitment to close my activity rings on my Apple Watch. So I only have an Apple Watch since last year. And you have those 3 rings. One is for the amount of times, the number of times that you stand. So because sitting down in front of a computer all day long is bad for everything, for your health, for your back. And so it will nudge me to stand up and walk around. And if I do that, I can close that particular ring. Then you have another ring, which is what? I think it is it a calorie ring? I don't even know. Let me take a look at my watch here. See, I'm not at all aware of what I'm doing, actually. So I've got a blue ring is for standing. The green one, I know the outer one, the red one, is for activity. So that is, for instance, the number of steps that I take. What is the third ring? The middle ring. Is it move? Exercise. Let me see. Stand. So I've got stand. I guess it's just move. Move, go. I don't know. Maybe it's steps. I guess it's steps. The outer ring may be steps. Anyway, so and I had set a target to do a minimum of, I think, 10,000 steps. Yeah, I think I challenged myself to do 10,000 steps every day. Oftentimes, especially if I had been doing a lot of computer work during the day, I still had to close that ring. And I made it, I was so motivated to close that ring that sometimes I would go outside like 1:45 and still walk in order to close that ring right before the end of the day. And sometimes I would go and walk up. If it was raining outside, I would run up the stairs and run back and walk up, and in my house I would pace around just to close that ring. And but most of the normal times, normal days, I would just go out for a walk after dinner, and I would take about an hour, walk around here in the neighborhood, and just listen to audiobooks. And that was a wonderful time. And I abandoned that routine. I was like, okay, so I've proven myself. I am an athlete. I walk. I am fit. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so the moment I stopped closing my rings, I didn't realize at the time that I also robbed myself from the occasion of having that hour or an hour and a half of time during which I was reading books, listening to audiobooks. So this is probably something I realized while listening to Cliff. Is like I was happy. That was one of the best years when it comes to learning and acquiring insight in my own life, in the way my brain works, and getting to know so many different authors and different types of stories. It was such a good time. Why wouldn't I just go back to the routines that made me happy? And the same is true for, fitness and working out. I loved walking so much, and it kept the weight off. I was fit. I was barely ever ill last year. This year I have more issues. I had a very bad cold a while ago, and I still think that maybe that's related to me being a little bit too heavy and not taking good care of my sleep and everything. So I've decided to try to recreate the routines that helped me to read more and to be more healthy, more fit. I just won't push myself at any price. That was the one thing that I didn't want to do anymore. And it had to do with just accepting that sometimes, some days, it's just not possible. You just have too much work or you're too tired, and it's better to go to bed than to try to close that one ring right before midnight. So I would like to do like a toned down version of the routines that made me happy and healthy. Another thing that I've picked up again, this has nothing to do, actually this has to do with food. So let's play the kitchen jingle here. The other routine that I picked up is something I have done in the past, and I hated it. And it is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is, well, you know what it is. It means that you just fast for instance, 12 hours. After about 8 o'clock in the evening, you stop eating. So no more snacks, no more, sugary drinks or anything. Maybe just tea without sugar. That's not going to break the fast. And then you only start eating again at 8 o'clock in the morning. What that does is it gives your body more time to balance out the blood sugar levels and to start renovating the various cells in your body. But 12 hours of fasting, of intermittent fasting, is kind of the bare minimum. So I tried that for a while. That was easy. But then I figured, you know what? I really need to get the weight off because in October, I would like to be fit. I'm going to do a lot of traveling. I want to run a marathon later this year. And every kilo that I can get off before I run that marathon will make me faster. So I set myself a goal. I want to be weighing 70 kilos as soon as possible. Of course, not going to do anything unhealthy. But if I combine working out at a regular basis, walking every day, and intermittent fasting, I might actually be able to pull this off quite quickly. So I started to, and this is maybe also my my neurodivergent brain, my ADHD tendencies. I was like, okay, let's go full force. I am immediately switching to 16 hours of fasting every day. So I stop eating at 8 in the evening, and I will only start eating again at noon. So in the morning, I eat nothing. That is hard. The one thing is, because it's such a prolonged period of time, it's actually, it's easier to skip breakfast than to skip, for instance, dinner. So I have a good meal at lunch, I have a good meal in the evening, and then I stop at 8 o'clock. And it is a reasonable time. And then I try to distract myself. I'm not putting myself in any situation where in the past I would just start snacking, like watching a movie or something like that. I don't do that. And if I watch TV, sometimes I watch an episode of Fallout, I make a cup of tea. And when I'm drinking a cup of tea, and it's just like this sleep tea, or how do you call it? It's tisane in French, so it's like a herbal tea. It's not really good. I don't like the taste of it, but it is something that flips the switch in my mind. Like, tea does not combine with crispy chips or anything, so I don't get tempted to snack. And I make sure, this was the one thing that I needed to get the hang of, is if I fast for 16 hours, it means that if I eat, I really need to hit my protein goal, because protein and complex carbs, carbohydrates, will actually keep me feel full for longer, and that's what you want. So I eat lots of salad now, lots of veggies. So it's basically the Mediterranean diet. But because I only have 2 meals each day, I can eat more. So it is actually a quite pleasant experience to eat a little bit more for every meal. And then I also tweaked it in such a way that I can eat a little bit more during the weekend. So during the weekend, I still, I do have breakfast in the weekend. I'm not like, well, I do calorie counting, but not too much. So it's okay to loosen up a little bit, and actually that works really well. I find it easier to maintain those 16 hours of intermittent fasting during the week if I have this prospect that during the weekend I cut myself some slack. And I've also, again, this is similar to me not always wanting to close my rings. If I'm really tired, I need to just sit with that feeling and maybe just allow myself to get more sleep instead of working out. I do the same with fasting. So there are moments that I have just too much of a craving, and instead of just fighting it and forcing myself with willpower like a Vulcan to not eat, I just eat a bit. But instead of eating something unhealthy, I will just eat like a hard-boiled egg. And that fills me up perfectly. Or some nuts, some healthy stuff. And yes, it does break the fasting, so I will not get all the benefits of a 16-hour fasting period, but at least I'm not falling back into that routine of eating unhealthy stuff or very salty snacks or something like that. So this past night, I woke up in, 4 o'clock. I was wide awake, and my brain just immediately went in overdrive, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I realized after a while, like, tossing and turning, I'm just hungry. I woke up because I was hungry. Maybe it's because I had an unbalanced evening meal. I don't even recall exactly what I ate, but it definitely wasn't enough to fill me up until noon the next day. So what did I do? I stepped out of bed. I was like, I'm not going to fight this. I'm hungry now. I walked down the stairs to the kitchen, and I ate a hard-boiled egg and something else. What else did I eat? It was in the middle of the night, so I have trouble recalling what it was. Maybe some yogurt? What was it? Oh, no, I know what it was. It was sushi. I bought some discounted sushi the day before, and it was like 15 pieces of sushi. And so I ate 5 of them. And sushi itself is pretty low in calories, but it does fill you up because it's rice. But it's rice that has been in the freezer, so it doesn't have the same effect on the blood sugar than if it's fresh rice, for instance. So that's true, by the way, also of bread and potatoes. The moment you put them in the fridge, the starch turns into, there's this reaction that makes it harder to digest. And so it's easier for the body to maintain low blood sugar levels. Anyway, won't bore you with the details. There is science behind it. And so I ate 5 pieces of sushi plus that hard-boiled egg, drank some water, and went back to sleep. And I immediately fell asleep. I've been awake for about an hour last night. And that was the solution. And I woke up this morning and was like, yeah, I think I'm going to just have breakfast. So I had a bit of breakfast, but nothing special. And then the rest of the day, I feel fine. I feel good. And there are days that I manage to do 16 hours of fasting, and I'm not hungry, and I'm fine, and there's nothing wrong. So I'm much more, instead of trying to prove something to myself, I'm able to just kind of work with my body and work with the hunger that I have, and I try not to overdo it. And I think that will help me to actually maintain this regimen for a much, much longer time. So I just wanted to share that with you.
I need help.
You need a teacher. I can't teach you.
Maybe the internet has the information I need.
You know what I learned from the internet?
I understand that you learned a few new things.
There really is so much to learn.
There's so much to learn. There's so many podcasts out there. There's so much new stuff every day. We're inundated with information. But Jill family in the Instagram chat says, Father, I used to listen to your podcast around 2008 or so. You helped me so much. Are those available any place? That's a very good question. It depends, of course, on the podcast you were listening to at the time, 2008. Those were the early days of my podcasting. And I had the show called The Catholic Insider, and I had the show called The Daily Breakfast. Now, I have all those shows. I have an archive of 15 years of podcasting, literally tens of thousands of shows. They're all on multiple hard drives. We have backup copies. But of course, obviously, I don't have them all online anymore because you cannot have a podcast feed that goes back thousands of episodes. It would be impossible to load in any podcatcher. So yes, those shows are still around. And actually, if it depends, if it's the Catholic Insider you're referring to, I have actually I've worked on bringing that show back online. So it's all in place. It's just that I haven't published it yet. What I would advise you is to subscribe to my newsletter. That way you can always get in touch with me by responding to the newsletter if you want to ask me something more in person, and I can take a look at if there's some way I can dig up some of those episodes that you may remember of those olden days. So if you go to fatherroderick.com/free and sign up for the newsletter, then you'll be able to get in touch with me. And I will also be able to keep you informed about, maybe bringing that archive of the Catholic Insider back. But if it was about me losing weight, that was not the Catholic Insider. That was actually a show called Healthy Catholic. And Healthy Catholic is the precursor show of The Walk. Nowadays it's called The Walk, and I still talk about physical health and mental health and spiritual growth. So the show is basically the same. It just has changed names over time. So it was Healthy Catholic, and then I don't know, there was another name, and then it became The Walk. But yes, I remember that was the first time that I realized that me sharing my own journey to get healthier, to start running, that was the time that I actually started to start running, and then ultimately ended up running multiple marathons. And it was a long time ago, but just sharing my own journey and also all my attempts to be healthier resonated with a lot of people. And yes, I still have all those episodes, and there may be a way for me to get them to you. So just get in touch with me through the newsletter, and I'll see what I can do. And if you've never checked out The Walk, then of course you may want to look for that show as well, because it's well, over time it shifted in content, but it's still basically what I did at the time. I just talk about ways in which I try to become a better me and healthier and more balanced, and how to deal with stress and so many other topics. So if you look for The Walk with Father Roderick, you will find a show that may remind you of those early days of podcasting. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I've watched. Sorry, I'm distracted because I started reading the chat, and I already talked about Fallout. So someone asked me, "Have you already watched Fallout?" Yes, I actually talked at length about it in the first part of this show. So you can always rewind and listen to what I had to say. So the other thing I wanted to mention is last weekend I went to a fantasy festival. I've talked about these festivals multiple times in the past. So it's the biggest fantasy and costume festival in Europe. It's organized twice a year, and this last weekend was again 2 days where I mingled with the crowd and filmed lots and lots of interviews. I talk a lot about it and why I go to festivals like that in this week's episode of The Walk. And I explain how I walk around there and how it's part of who I want to be for people, and how I try to be there for people that, beyond the boundaries of my parishes. And so what I've been doing for almost a week before I went there was I wanted to film everything with my phone. This was going to be a big experiment. I bought the iPhone 15 Pro Max at the end of last year with the intent of using it as my main camera, as a professional production device, and not just as a phone that has cameras. And I knew that the iPhone was able to film in high quality, or was able to film high quality footage. You could even use professional formats like log, and obviously the lenses are amazing. There is a wide angle lens and a zoom lens and a regular lens, and all those lenses have tremendous qualities. Plus, of course, Apple adds its own digital wizardry. So I only took my phone, but I did a lot of research on can I add a microphone to this? Can I maybe enclose the phone in a rig so it's easier to hold? Is it possible to add an SSD to it? I know that there are lots of people that found solutions on connecting external SSD so you can record in high quality without it completely maxing out the internal memory of the phone, which is, in my case, just 256 gigs. That's plenty if you film with the highly compressed formats. But the moment you start filming in professional log, you need external storage. So I did a lot of research and found out there are a lot of cool solutions now. But I was overwhelmed by the possibilities. So there is a rig which is super small. It's just basically a case that you put around the phone, but around the lens, you can click in a magnetic filter holder. And so you can put, for instance, an ND filter over that covers the 3 lenses of the iPhone. An ND filter, a variable ND filter, is like sunglasses for your phone. Why is that important? It is because when you are filming out in the open, the sunlight is so strong that in order to minimize the amount of light and for the footage to not be completely overblown, the iPhone will automatically heighten the frame rate, or not the frame rate, but the shutter speed. So what that does to your image is that the image will no longer have that fluidity, the motion blur that you get if you're filming at, a shutter speed of 50 frames per second. And instead it will look much more choppy. And if you put on a neutral density filter, you can actually reduce the amount of light that hits the sensors. And then you can use much better frame rates, and it looks so much more cinematic if you do that. That was that's one solution. The downside is you sometimes want to add gear to your phone, like, for instance, a microphone. Audio is super important for the overall impression that people have And I gambled. I was like, I don't have time to make a decision because I can also buy bigger rigs and then you can screw on an external microphone. But then in order to attach the microphone to your iPhone, in addition to, for instance, an external SSD, you need to also mount a USB hub. But in order to give energy power to the USB hub, you need an external battery. So, and before you know it, you're walking around with, I don't know, a pound of gear, and it becomes all very clumsy to walk around with. And much more, what I love about the iPhone is it's so small. It fits in your pocket. It is unassuming. And when I approach someone for an interview with just my phone, nobody is like, oh, but I'm going to be on camera. No, it's just everybody is like, sure, go ahead. But now that I've made my footage, the quality of the video is amazing, even though I did not use a neutral density filter. The audio is terrible. There was a lot of wind. I didn't notice how much that impacted the sound. So I now have to do audio improvement, sometimes with AI, to make it more or less acceptable. So I really regret not having recorded the audio separately so I could mix it later. So that now makes me realize that, yes, I do need a rig around my phone. I want it to be small, but it must have a microphone solution because the audio is almost unusable. And that's just a shame because I have wonderful encounters with people, amazing interviews, and I want to do this again. There are at least 3 more festivals that I want to visit this year, and I want to do the same thing. So I need to make sure that I have a rig for my phone. So I love this whole tweaking process. I've watched countless YouTube videos with people demonstrating the various rigs that you can use, and it's just that I feel like time was running out and I needed to do something, and I told myself I'd rather just do something too simple so I can upgrade later and learn from this experience rather than being stuck and ordering something that in the end is unusable and doesn't really work for me. So if I buy a rig and I want everything to be exactly what I need. So anyway, but I'm super amazed by the quality of the photos that I took. You can see them on my Facebook page and on my Instagram page. And also the contents of the interviews is really good. For me, it's an amazing, and I want to share this on my social media. I talk about this also in this week's episode of The Walk. I have an idea on how I can post updates from events like this quicker, because I always was filming as if I was doing a TV show. But to put together a 25-minute TV show, that would take 2 weeks of work. I don't have those resources. I don't have the time. And if I would hire someone, it would cost me at least $5,000. So that's a lot for a documentary that won't be aired on TV. But maybe I can post things in a different way. Anyway, if you want to hear more of my thoughts about that, go check out this episode of The Walk.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner built... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
There's one more thing I want to mention here at the end of the show, and that is there's big news in the world of VR. There was actually bad news and there was good news. And it's interesting because always in motion the future is, as Yoda would say. So what happened? First of all, we got some news that the Apple Vision Pro is in a free fall when it comes to sales. Apple is realizing that after the initial excitement, nobody cares about the Apple Vision Pro anymore. And I am pretty sure that they are doing a lot of research to figure out why that is. I think it is actually quite simple. It's a very expensive device. It's first generation. It's not very comfortable to wear for most people. And there's no killer app. It's still a very, very, very early version. It's almost early access technology. And it will probably need at least 4 iterations before it becomes something that everybody will be able to afford and will be wanting to use. Now, I think that Apple is in this for the long run. They're probably not going to worry too much about these disappointing sales. It's just that the initial phase, everybody was so enthusiastic that Apple was like, oh, maybe this is going to be a hit. And it turns out that, you know, the enthusiasm is fading away. Now, I'm sure that Apple has some tricks up its sleeve to make sure that people will continue to see that Apple is investing in this platform and finding ways to make it more attractive. This is very similar to any technology that Apple has launched. It takes a couple of years, but Apple is the start, the beginning, the first initial product is already so amazingly good that it can only get better from this point on. So if they can solve the weight problem and the cost problem, I think that this will ultimately be something that a lot of people would like to have. I would absolutely buy it if it was half the price of the current Apple Vision Pro and if it wasn't so heavy. Now, Meta, of course, has started to invest in VR years and years ago because Mark Zuckerberg thought this was going to be the next big thing and everybody would be in the metaverse and he would be able to make billions. Turns out that actually the world moved in a different direction and VR didn't become the big thing that he thought it would be, but he still continued to put out new versions of the Meta Quest VR goggles, positioning it mostly as an entertainment device, which I think is very smart. Apple is positioning it as a professional device that replaces your computer and your big screen TV. So it's very much geared towards productivity, which is a bit of a harder sell, I think, to a lot of people. Meta is aiming for the entertainment market, offering immersive experiences. And the one thing that they do really well now is they keep improving the product even after it launched. And so they just this past week announced that the operating system that they developed for their Meta Quest will now be licensed to anyone who wants to build their own VR headset. They can just use the entire software infrastructure, plus, of course, all the stuff that Meta has developed to, you know, to do hand positioning and all that stuff. There's a lot of technology that we aren't even aware of. And they want to make that available to any company who wants to make VR glasses. And they literally said, we want to become the Android of VR technology, compared to, of course, the closed iPhone system, the iOS system that is proprietary to Apple, and you cannot buy any other device from any other company that has iOS. Whereas Android in my part of the world is the market leader. In most of the world, except for the United States, Android is much bigger than iOS. And that's a good thing because these two operating systems are constantly competing, and that's what drives improvement. And so now that Apple has launched the Apple Vision Pro and everybody has been able to see the quality of what they've put out, now you see that Meta reacts very quickly. And so maybe we are unable to get to the quality level of what Apple does right now, but we can get quantity. If we make our system available to anyone who wants to use it and license it, we will become the standard. Or at least grab a sizable piece of the market. And of course, Meta is probably selling the Meta Quest at a loss or a break-even point. They don't make money on it. For them, it's an investment in the future. Other companies may be able to deliver higher-end versions, but still working with the same software. So I can totally see a company like Asus, who has already said, we want to make a new headset in collaboration with Meta, but it's really going to be geared at gamers. It's going to be much faster. It's going to be maybe have a wider field of view, or it will have all these bells and whistles that gamers appreciate. And if you can conquer the gaming world with a headset, you have a massive market. That is where the growth is, not the television market that Apple seems to aim for with the Disney Plus integration. That is still obviously also an interesting market, but who wants to, if you have a family, you're not going to wear the headset to watch TV. You want to see this together with friends and family members. So it's a very solitary thing. Gaming has always been a solitary thing. You always, in front of your screen playing video games by yourself. They're just a few kids' games that you maybe can play with a secondary controller. And you will still have a community, but it's an online community. So gaming is so much more natural fit for VR than watching TV or movies. And obviously, Meta is also making it easier to watch 3D movies. They will obviously continue to develop this ecosystem so you can watch maybe 3D movies streaming this with future versions of the Meta Quest. So it's a very interesting, this is a pivotal moment, I think, for VR, because this means more players on the market. That will drive down the cost. It will improve competition, and it may accelerate also the cycles at Apple, because now that there is serious competition, they will need to prove themselves why people should pay, $3,500 for the Apple Vision Pro. And the more popular Meta gets, the more Apple will feel motivated to accelerate their own development cycles. So good times ahead for VR lovers like me. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Thanks for hanging out with me here. Make sure to listen to the episode of The Walk, during which I also share a lot of my plans, or it's not just plans. We're about to launch the early access phase of my online communities, and we're gonna roll this out very responsibly. First, we are planning on inviting a subset of people for an early access experience. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the final state of those communities. I'm still working on filling them with content and working out the nooks and crannies of this new system. But it's much more fun to do that with a small group of beta testers. So we're gonna pick and choose some people. Don't feel insulted if you don't get an email or you don't get an invitation. It's not because of you. It's just that we want to just make a very small selection first of people that we know will engage with that community. So when we roll this out a little bit later, it will be a very well-oiled machine for all of you. Stay tuned. Again, make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter at fatherroderick.com/free. Talk to you soon. God bless. And that's a wrap. Now I'm tired. Hey, thanks to all of you who are watching this on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Always appreciate it if you join me live. Hey, Marlies, good to see you. So, Grim Crescent is watching from Florida in the US. Good to see you. Jeannie wants to know if I was talking about Healthy Catholic. Yes, actually, there was someone, Jill family wanted to know if the old Healthy Catholic episodes from 2008 were still around. So I have them in my archive, but they're not online. So I was reminiscing about those. That was the years that I started running. It seems like an eternity ago. If you had told me back then that I would one day have run more than, 12 marathons, I would not have believed it. But here we are. Margot says, discounted sushi might be peak Dutch thrift. Yeah, sushi is kind of it's a risky thing to buy if it's past its expiration date. It's not very good sushi, though. Oh my gosh, it's so bland. But it was dirt cheap. I think I paid $2 for 15 pieces of sushi, so can't complain about that. Got Boudewijn also watching, and the Sprookje. which means the fairy tale. Oh, I think I know who that is. Wonderful. Angeline, also watching. I hope Case is doing well. Mike is there, Sean Curry, Tony So, and that's about it. Well, wonderful. How am I today? I'm doing really well. I'm a little bit tired at the end of the day because I recorded 2 episodes, 2 podcasts. So, but now at least I'm done and I can start my weekend. And tonight I'm going to watch another episode of Fallout. I love that show. And then I'm going to probably also play Fallout 76, which is a video game based on the same universe. So maybe there's even some Lego in my near future this weekend. I was supposed to go on a trip next week. I may still do that. But right now, my priority is to still recover from last weekend. I was exhausted this week. I've been like constantly tired, and it's just because those 2 weekends those 2 days of the weekend running around interviewing people, I have like a social jet lag afterwards, and it's just so much work. So maybe if I'm feeling a little bit better next week, I might actually still book a trip somewhere, and if not, that's not a problem either. All right. Dean says, I just found your channel recently. I appreciate your content and your mission. That's good to hear. Dean, make sure to subscribe to my Diary of a Media Priest because I can then keep you updated on my other stuff that I make. So take a look at fatherroderick.com/free, and I'd love to have you as a part of my online community. Marlies watched Spy vs. Family in the movie theater. Have I heard of this? Spy vs. Family? Isn't that an anime series? I don't know. I never go to the movies anymore. I wait for these things to show up online. Eddie says hello too. We're both off from work today, driving to Virginia Tech to see our daughter at the Engineering Senior Design Expo. We enjoyed being able to hear your show done live. Well, wonderful to hear that. And have a good trip. Have a safe trip. Enjoy the weekend. And we'll talk soon. All right. Well, I'm going to head for the kitchen, eat something, and then I'll post these podcast episodes online. If you want to listen to the shows and listen to the previous shows, make sure to look for The Break with Father Roderick and The Walk with Father Roderick. Those are my 2 podcasts. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.